In this HomeDax tutorial video, we will be discussing how you can go about sending a New York State disclosure form to a seller client. The purpose of a disclosure form here in New York is actually to fulfill licensing law. It is a requirement that upon the first substantive contact you have with a client, you need to send them or present them with a disclosure form that establishes your relationship to them and to another counterparty in a transaction. So we're going to be talking today about how to send out one of these to a seller client. Presumably you are in contention to be hired as a listing agent for a property. So in addition to the listing agreement, which you'll have to negotiate with them, you certainly do need to send a copy of this disclosure form. Now we're looking at the form on the screen here, and I've actually obtained this from the Department of State website, but it's quite simple to find. You would just go onto Google, type in New York State disclosure form, and it should show up towards the top. Keep in mind there is a separate disclosure form for the rental side of the business. So if you're working with a tenant or a landlord, there is a slightly different version of the form, but it does look similar. It has the same Department of State logo at the top, but it is very different from this one. So just make sure when you're looking for it that you find the correct disclosure form. The first page of the disclosure form is really just text. There's nothing that you have to modify prior to presenting this to your client. But the second page is around half text and half fill in the blank. And this is the area where we're going to work on today. There are two ways we can go about doing this. If you want, you can actually fill out everything on your computer and you can then save it as a PDF, and then it can be uploaded into, say, an e-signature system to be sent to the client. Or if you prefer, you can actually just work with the empty template, and we could go ahead and upload it into a platform such as HelloSign, and then we could fill out the form directly on the website. So we're going to go ahead and just fill everything out on the e-signature platform. This is one of them. There's many out there. Most of them will offer a free trial or some amount of free documents per month. So if you don't have one already, a subscription, feel free to explore and figure out what might work for you and your lifestyle. So once you're on the home page here, you're going to want to click on navigate rather to the Sign Documents button and then click on Just Others. You can also get there just by clicking on Just Others. They go to the same place. So on this next page, the first thing we want to do is upload the disclosure form. So we'll click Add File, and then wherever you've saved it on your computer, go ahead and locate it. It does take a minute to convert, so just be a little patient. I like to wait for this to finish before proceeding, because if it doesn't load correctly, you're not going to be able to click this button, Prepare Doc for Signing, which is when you go into the document and you actually start filling things in. So in the meantime, I guess we can go ahead and put in the signer's information. Now we're going to just make up two fictitious people. We're going to say that the seller is Jane Doe, and we're going to say that her email is jane245444444@gmail.com. Now keep in mind, if you are working with a seller and there are multiple owners, say a wife, partnership, whatever it is, then you're going to need both of them to both be presented with the disclosure form and also the listing agreement. So in this case, let's say that there's another individual named John Doe, and we're just going to put in the same email, just modify the name, fictitious. And so both Jane and John are going to be receiving a copy of this disclosure form. Now, one other option you have is to check the Assign Signer Order button. And what this does essentially is it would first require Jane to sign the document before John is presented with a document to sign. So this is helpful in general. I mean, if you're sending something out and there's really no point in, say, you signing a listing agreement if the seller hasn't signed yet. So you can click on Assign Sign Order if you prefer. Another interesting feature here is the CC. So if there's a third party who wants to be copied on this, who wants to see the document or know that you've sent it, you can click the Add CC button and you can type in someone's email here. Now that person will not be a signer of the document, but they are going to be given a notification that it's been sent for signature, and they will receive a copy of the signed document once Jane and John have both signed. Now let's go ahead and click on Prepare Doc for Signing. And this is going to open up the actual document. And there's a lot of things we can use here to go ahead and get it ready. So the first thing we're going to do is we actually need to fill out some text ourselves. So you just drag a text box like that. And then if you're filling it out, you say that we are going to fill it out. And then in this case, we're going to be putting in some information here, specifically who the form is provided from. So in this case, it's going to be the name of the broker. And then we'll put another text box here, which is the name of the actual brokerage firm. There we go. And as a next step, we should put a checkbox, I suppose. And in this case, we're going to be the seller, and then we're going to be the seller's agent. So just to be clear, we're going to check for both of these. We are acting in the interest of the seller, yes, and in this case, we are the seller's agent. Now, you could also perform the role of a dual agent if your seller is okay with that. If that were to be the case, you would not check these two, and you would just check either the box dual agent or dual agent with designated sales agent. And of course, you're also able to request advance informed consent to dual agency. So even if a dual agent situation has not occurred yet, the seller can give you the authorization in advance for a scenario like that by way of checking this, either the advanced informed consent dual agency or the second option, which designates particular agents to represent the buyer and the seller. Now, as a next step, we need to fill in the name of the buyer or the seller, the person who we're presenting this form to. So we'll add another text box here, and we'll just type in Jane Doe. And then we're going to need to also check the relationship. In this case, we are working with the sellers. Now, I believe we actually had two names, so we actually need to update this to Jane and John Doe. And then just to summarize, so we filled out the contact info of the agent and the firm. We've selected our particular agency relationship. We've put the names of the clients, and we've checked the box in this case that they're the sellers. Now here's where the signature comes into play. So you just drag the signature, and then you would, under who fills it out, you would select, I guess, Jane for one, then you would select John for the other one, and then if you'd like to add date fields, you can drag them down. We're going to put two of them. One is going to be assigned to Jane, and the other one is going to be assigned to John. What happens here basically is when the document is accessed by Jane or John, the date on which they access will actually appear in these fields. And that's why we're assigning the date to individuals, because you never know when one will open and the other will open. It might be a different date. So whenever that's all set, you click continue, and then you have the option to put a title for the outreach, the email that these individuals will receive, as well as a message. This would be essentially inside the email in the body of the message. So I'm going to leave that blank for now, but feel free to put whatever you'd like there. And then whenever we're ready to submit, we click request. Looks like they want us to put a title, so we'll just put agency disclosure form. And then we'll click request. So once you see that the request has been sent, you're good to go. Both Jane and John are going to receive an email, and they will be able to click the link in the email on a phone, tablet, computer, whatever that they're using, and then the document will appear. They'll be able to read it, and then they'll be able to sign and date in the locations that we prepared when we sent out their request. If you have any comments or questions, leave us a message below the video. And if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, HomeDax Real Estate, certainly encourage you to do so. That way you'll receive notifications whenever we come out with new content. And if you have any requests for particular topics for us to do a tutorial on, leave us a comment below the video.